The EPA is trying to weaken the rules for the Defense Department so they can pollute communities without the fear of any kind of oversight at all. And so where we're really seeing this is the topic on PFOA, C8. The case, The Devil We Know. How do you get a better documentary? This documentary is winning every kind of award you can possibly win. It's called The Devil We Know. It talks about the tragedy of C8 and how it's killing people it's in your drinking water. It's killing you with cancer. It's killing with neurological disease. It's causing birth defects. And the public has barely paid attention to it until we tried that case in the Ohio River Valley. Remember, we tried four, one behind each other, and punished DuPont. And then all of a sudden, now all this information's coming out, except the DOD and the Pentagon want to keep it quiet.
Right, because these PFOA chemicals, it's not just C8. This stuff is everywhere. It's in firefighter foam, and that's where a lot of the contamination from the Department of Defense comes from, the firefighting foam. They use it all the time on military bases. It's in raincoats. It's in any kind of non-stick, slick coating. PFOAs are in 98% of our bodies in this country, and it stays there for years and years.
Teflon pans, you go to your kitchen,
right.
You're going to find it all over your kitchen, Teflon pans. Okay, so here's what they found. These military bases, well, there's about 600 of them, they use this for firefighting, as you point out, and now we know that they've identified 172 sites where we know that because of that military base, the drinking water and the groundwater in that area around the base has been affected, and it's been affected this way. We know this for sure. We know that if there's a certain level of C8 in your drinking water, you are at multiple increased risk for cancer. Now, when we tried the case up in up in the Ohio River Valley, most scientists will tell you there should be zero C8 in your water. But the EPA, to begin with, said, oh no, let's make it, if it's okay if there's only 30 parts per trillion in your drinking water. Now, to put it in perspective, one drop in an Olympic-sized pool, one drop, just a regular drop in an Olympic-sized pool, is 1 part per billion. And they're saying 30 parts per trillion is acceptable. But the the Pentagon, that's not even enough for them, is it? Pentagon's fighting back on that, aren't they?
Right. The Pentagon wants to up it because they know how much contamination they have. And they say, how about for just us, EPA, how about you give us a special deal that's 300 parts per trillion? They want to take it up to 300 parts per trillion. We're talking about more than roughly 5 times what the EPA even says is borderline acceptable. And the Pentagon wants to say, you know what? We want to save $2 billion because that's how much they'll save if they up the standards. So could you just do it for us? I mean, this is a department that has $750 billion in fund money per year.
And they're complaining that it's going to cost them a billion or so to clean this up.
Right.
They could do it tomorrow. The second thing they're doing is they're trying to slow the process down. The EPA is dysfunctional and as awful as they are, had enough sense to say, this is an emergency. We need to handle this as an emergency. And the Pentagon is saying, no, we don't really want to handle the emergency. Let's slow play this. Let's see where it goes. Where it goes is people are drinking C8. They're bathing in it. They're feeding it to their children in baby formula when they mix baby formula. This stuff is very, very dangerous. And the Department of Defense, the Pentagon, is doing everything they can to slow play this out. And if you're living in Michigan, if you're living in California, if you're living in New Jersey, buddy, you are in the red zone. You are in the red zone for this because it's in your drinking water probably. That's what's so ugly. And the the Pentagon says, so what? So we poisoned your water. We don't have enough money to pay for it right now. They got plenty of money.
Well, you and I right now are sitting in an area that's basically surrounded by 3 massive military bases. And we know, according to maps by the Environmental Working Group, this area you and I are sitting in right now is one of those sites that is hugely contaminated. We have it right here in our backyard, quite literally. And the people in this area, I don't even think that they understand. But that's what people have to realize is that just because it's not on the national news doesn't mean that you're not being exposed to this. People should be talking about this. The media absolutely is god awful.
Well, the media is responsible for a lot of this. You understand, corporate media didn't tell this story because DuPont and 3M were their big advertisers. So they refused to tell the story. Even, this is so interesting, even when I was in trial, they wouldn't tell the story. So, you know, this is a story, this stuff's killing people. Farron, thanks for joining me, okay?
Thank you.
Ethiopian investigators say the preliminary report into last month's deadly Ethiopian Airlines plane crash shows the two pilots tried everything they could do to stop the airplane from nosediving. Lawsuits against Boeing are already being filed over the crash. Molly Barrows, legal journalist with the Trial Lawyer magazine, joins me now to talk more about that. You know, I'll tell you, you probably had the same impression I did. After Ethiopia, 30 countries grounded this airplane.
That's right.
But not the U.S.
Not right away, no.
And as I look at it, it was because, I mean, it's the same old story. Boeing has a huge footprint in politics.
Yes.
And so we kept the airplanes flying, running the risk again and again for all those people that were flying on the airline. What caused the crash as far as what they found?
Well, of course, it's going to take a year as far as the Ethiopian investigation for them to pinpoint an exact cause or go on the record with it. But right now, the preliminary findings, which just came out recently, the investigators are essentially suspecting that these pilots couldn't get this anti-stall software to control it. It basically was overriding them. It was sending the plane into a nosedive, very similar to a crash that happened in October in Indonesia. Same plane, same Boeing 737 MAX, with this updated software that essentially they can't override it.
Yeah, when they started coming out, they call them glass cockpits. Okay, in modern jets, it's called a glass cockpit, and what it means, you're getting away from traditional digital. What you're moving into is something that's so sophisticated. If you talk to a lot of pilots about this, they'll tell you it's getting too smart.
That's what they said. There wasn't enough training for it.
Yeah, they put in some new system, and when you look at the system, you're great. You know, the airplane will land itself. I really like that it'll land itself if it has to. But right now, you have to, in this situation, the criticism is technology is exceeding the training and capability of some of the pilots.
Yes.
And that's exactly what this story's about.
Yes.
But as you watch this develop, I mean, you're going to see Boeing push back in a big, big way. They're going to push back politically. I mean, here again, 30 countries grounded the airplane, but not the FFA.
Yeah, not
FAA.
Right, not the FAA. Right. Yes, not immediately.
Might have been run by the FFA. But
I'm sure that's another story.
Yeah.
So it was basically right after that Ethiopian crash last month that within days, 30 countries from India to Africa were saying, no more of this jet, not until we get a handle on what's going on with this software. And the FAA was saying, we're fact-based, we're data-driven. We need to get all our ducks in a row before we do this because, of course, Boeing is an American company and they're, like you said, politically entwined, so that could perhaps be their motivation. But their reason on the record was that they wanted to get all the data first. And, of course, the data that they did go and find suggested the same thing that these other investigators have found, which is why the other countries suspended and grounded the jet, which was that they still didn't have a handle on this software, and they felt like it was to blame for these planes nosediving because the pilots basically tried to override it and couldn't.
Right. We see this same type of, I'm intrigued by this governmental response. Right. We see the same thing with the FDA all the time. The FDA, there'll be a drug that's killing people, and it'll be on the market in Europe, and the European agencies will say, get it off the market. So sometimes they'll get the product off the market a full year before the United States even takes action. And when you look at why that happens, it's part of that lobbyist intrigue. It is, who do you know? Who can you talk to? How much money have you spread around? And so even though this was a short period of time, it was, oddly enough, it was Trump demanding that they ground this airplane.
Only because Canada, by the Wednesday afternoon, so basically the crash happened over the weekend, March 17th, and then that following Wednesday, those 30 countries, including Canada, by the end of the day had said, we're grounding this jet. And that's when President Trump stepped forward and said, well, we're going to ground this jet as well, which was an unusual move because, as you said, the FAA normally makes that call. And it wasn't until after President Trump said that they went ahead ahead and grounded the jet as well. But they're also saying that that Boeing's going to be under investigation by the Justice Department as well as the FBI for whatever they knew or didn't know.
Yeah, and whatever they concealed. And I'm telling you.
And Boeing says they support grounding the jet,
right.
and they're not. And there are lawsuits, so that's the other
Yes,
thing.
of course.
And they're saying the same thing, that this software wasn't.
We're going to find a
done.
document trail in here that's going to scare the bejesus out of people. Thank you for joining me,
Yes,
Molly.
thank you,
Okay.
Pat.
This is an important message for our nation's veterans. If you served our country in the military between 2003 and 2015 and you suffered significant hearing loss, you might be entitled to compensation. Because the hearing protection you were issued may be at fault for the damage you suffered, but you need to act now. Your time to make a claim might be limited. Learn more at levinlaw.com/earplugs.